Welcome to Fuel Disclosure, a Moffitt Services podcast. On this show, you will learn how Moffitt Services is pioneering the fuel delivery industry. From fuels and lubricant product news, to stories from the community, to recent industry trends with subject matter experts. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a moment from Moffitt. To learn even more about the Moffitt Services difference, visit moffittservices.com. Hi, my name's Landry, and welcome back to another episode of Fuel Disclosure. Today, we're especially excited because we have one of our owners, Kleimann, here joining us today. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule, and happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you, Landry, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. So to start off, give us a little background, tell us who you are and how you came to work at Moffitt.
Sure. So,
or own Moffitt, I should say. Sorry.
Well, either way. So my family was in the fuel business. First of all, when I was in high school, my parents were in the wholesale fuel business. They also operated convenience stores. We were family friends with the Moffitts. In high school, one of my stepbrothers and I purchased 2 Texaco stations, and that's really how I kind of got exposed
in high school
to the fuel business.
You purchased?
Yes.
Wow, how impressive.
I was a junior. My stepbrother was a senior, and that's kind of how we got exposed. I left that industry, though, when I went to college, and was out of it for a long time. I spent a little over 2 decades in the human resources outsourcing business. But to your question about how I got here, in 2014, I got a phone call from Rusty Moffitt, and his family had sold the family business years before, and he wanted to get back into the business.
Okay.
And on June 23rd, 2014, Rusty and I started Moffitt Services.
I love it. And we just celebrated our anniversary not too long ago.
We did.
9 years
9.
old.
That's
or
right.
Or young.
That's right.
I don't know.
That's right.
Well, I didn't know any of that background information about you. How impressive.
Thank you.
At high school, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, by the way, I wouldn't recommend that for anyone that's watching this. It probably took my eye off the ball a bit of my studies.
Okay.
I was probably spending a lot more time in the business and less time studying than I should have been. In hindsight, I learned a lot of lessons in the business, but I'm not sure I would recommend that.
Yeah. And remind me where you went to college?
I went to Sam Houston State University in Huntsville.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you for sharing that information with us. I guess my next question is what does a typical day look like at Moffitt? And when you first started Moffitt Services 9 years ago, can you kind of explain your transition into what the company was 9 years ago and then how it is today?
Sure. So first of all, I just want to add that while Rusty and I started the business in 2014, in 2016, Rusty's father, which is also a longtime family friend of mine, Roy Moffitt, joined he and I. So there are 3 owners of Moffitt Services, Roy, Rusty, and I. As to what my typical day looks like, that's evolved a lot over 9 years. I would say in the early days, we all spent a lot of time wearing many hats and doing probably many things. We had a lot fewer people. Everybody had to be good at a lot of different things. I would say in general, as the business has grown, people are a little bit more specialized in specific areas. But in terms of what my day looks like, currently we're spending a lot of time and energy around technology and really kind of how we manage the data, how much how we use that data to improve the efficiency of the business, the safety of the business as the business has grown. Contrast that with, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago, much more of my time was spent on kind of transforming the way we finance the business, for example, our banking arrangements and treasury arrangements, Prior to that, it was really looking at the way we insure the business as businesses grow, and we've had the great fortune of seeing a lot of growth in the business from startup to a little over $200 million in revenue last year. You have to reinvent almost every aspect of the business. And so to answer your question, most of my time is spent really on kind of those transformational pieces as they come up year over year. It kind of leads us to a slightly different place. Right now it happens to be really technology and data.
Yeah, definitely. And with it growing so fast, you kind of have to be one step ahead, which it seems every year you were on the dot on that.
Yeah, we'd always like to be a little further ahead. One thing about growth companies is it seems like it's always difficult to get ahead because you're always catching up, and it's a great problem to have. And I find that there, are people who are cut out to work in growth organizations, and there are people who are not. And I'm proud of our team and how we've evolved to really handle that growth and kind of have the aptitude for that. It is kind of a learned skill.
Yeah, definitely. And how many employees would you say Moffitt has now?
Today we have 167 employees. Just to give you some comparison, at Christmas, at the time of our Christmas party, we had 142, I believe. And at the end of that was in 22. At the end of 21, I believe we had just broken the 100 threshold.
Wow!
So we've seen a lot of growth in our talent base.
Yes. We're always introducing new hires, and I love it.
Yes, it's fun.
What would you say makes the Moffitt difference?
Commitment, and what I mean by that is, if we tell you we're going to do something, we are going to find a way to get it done. And that's not always in the simplest of environments. As you well know, we have a business that responds to natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, fires. And so I think that's where we've really honed that skill, and I give Rusty Moffitt a lot of credit for that. He runs the disaster response piece of the business, but I think it helps the entire organization kind of bring those same traits that it sometimes takes when you mobilize to a region where there's no food, no electricity, no cell phone signal, and you have to find a way to run the business. When you come back from that, you come home from that, you kind of remember those traits and can apply them into what we call the core business, which is the business back home, where we're serving the same customers in a much simpler environment. And then, of course, in our brokerage business, which is where we serve customers all over the country using other fuel distributors, that can be a bit more challenging because we don't control the assets. We don't; those are not our assets and our people, and it takes a slightly different skill set. So commitment is what I would say is different about us.
Yes, I feel that all around the office. Every day when you walk in, everybody does their job when they go, and then when they're on those natural disasters, they're gone for a long time. So their commitment, being away from their family, still coming back strong, continuing to go. So I would agree with that adjective to describe the Moffitt difference.
That's one point I would like to make, is that the commitment that our employees make is not the only commitment. I want to acknowledge the families, the wives, the husbands, the children that are often without their loved ones for weeks and sometimes months at a time. I know that's not easy. I have a family of my own, and I want to acknowledge that and thank them for that.
Absolutely. Yes, well deserved. I'm going to make a little transition and ask you, what is your favorite memory at Moffitt this far?
Yeah, I have a lot of those. A lot of.
I know it's hard to
memories,
pick one, right?
But so one, and it's maybe not just so much a memory, but Joanne Moffitt, which is Roy's mother, Rusty's grandmother, the late Joanne Moffitt. Joanne passed a couple of years ago, but she really was, I think, the driving force behind the brand that is known as Moffitt. I don't want to take any credit away from Roy, Rusty, and other Moffitt members who have been in the business longer than I have. But it was a treat to watch her. In our early days, we officed next door to her house, and so she would come over to the office every day and check the mail. That was kind of one of her favorite things. But just kind of watching her and seeing kind of the glow in her, to see this legacy kind of crank back up and really begin to thrive was a really neat memory. And she really, for many years, was a big force behind the brand known as Moffitt, and I think behind that legacy of commitment that has helped us grow the business so much through the brand recognition and what it stands for. So that would clearly be high on that list.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and I can't even imagine what a treat, for sure, to have her come in, and because she started this business in 1947.
Well, she actually was kind of thrown into the business a little after that. So her husband passed away at a fairly early age, in his 40s, I believe. And so she was thrust into the business without any real experience in the business. I believe that happened sometime in the 70s. And so, boy, she just did a fantastic job of kind of figuring this out, rolling her sleeves up, and become, I think she was even recognized at one point as a female entrepreneur of the year in our area. So she was kind of a trailblazer, not only in the fuel business, but for women in business, period.
Wow. And how special that Rusty, Roy, and yourself had started it back in 2014, so she could see that it came full circle and that all of her work was continued. So
yeah, I'm so glad she got to see.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
What a special memory, for sure. Now that we've talked about your favorite memory, now I want to ask you, what has been a challenge at Moffitt, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, good question. In growth organizations, there are always plenty of those. I think one of those would be when, in our early days, particularly, where we were responding to natural disasters and we had far fewer assets to do it with. It would become particularly challenging to cover all of our bases, to make sure that we were taking care of our core customers with the level of commitment that we command, while also taking care of our customers in these disaster-affected regions. That was particularly challenging, and sometimes we pulled not only ourselves, but many of our employees, including drivers and back office, away from family and friends for long hours. I can remember we went through a period at one point where I don't think we locked the front door of our office for, I think it was 13 days. There was literally someone in the office 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop. People, we all reach our breaking points at different points in time, and I think it was a turning point for us as a company, meaning, knowing that we really had to have a good model to be prepared for these kind of events, to get more creative in how we leverage technology and how we leverage part-time help and other contract resources, so that we don't put people in harm's way, or don't ask people to make contributions or commitments that are beyond reason.
Yeah, definitely. And how would you say, what are some of the things that you've done to make that happen?
That's a good question. So I think, one, we look at processes a bit differently in the business today. By the way, so the way Roy, Rusty, and I approach our partnership, I've already told you that Rusty runs our disaster business. Roy spends the majority of his time really focused on the sales organization within our business, marketing and customer service, which really leaves me to be able to focus on what I'll just call the back office being human resources, finance, accounting, safety, those kinds of things. So back to that question, we approach processes a bit differently. So when we design processes or when we implement systems, we go into that knowing that these processes and systems may go through periods of scaling up quickly. So that becomes a bigger priority. We just don't build processes that can't scale up. Sometimes that requires us to have a stable of maybe temporary or part-time help. It also has caused us to put people in positions, and I'll use drivers as an example. So we have many people in positions that are not drivers in our company that have commercial driver's license and are perfectly qualified to get in one of our vehicles and drive a truck. And so now when we have to ramp up the business for disasters, for example, we have people throughout the organization that we can rotate into the field and have people cross-trained to fill those maybe less difficult to backfill roles, right?
Yes. So that's a great strategy, hiring people who can do multiple things.
Right. So almost every dispatcher we have in our business has a commercial driver's license and can operate most any truck in our fleet.
That's a great tool, hiring well-rounded individuals.
Yes.
I love to see it. Well, now that we've talked about some of the challenges and some of the processes that you've implemented since 2014 to 2023, can you speak a little bit about Moffitt's philanthropic efforts, especially when it comes to Boots for Troops and Texas EquiSearch, and when that relationship grew and kind of why we decided to back both of those organizations in particular?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'll start with Boots for Troops.
Okay.
Our relationship with them goes back, probably 6 years. And, I don't even remember exactly how it started, but there was something about their organization the minute we got exposed to it that really kind of clicked with us for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have a number of veterans in our organization, in our employee base. We were looking for a philanthropic organization that we could not only provide financial resources to, but that we could help in other ways. For example, in Boots for Troops, where sometimes that is fueling generators at their events, or as you know, getting involved in helping plan some of their events where maybe we're holding joint events, helping promote that organization with signage on our vehicles, with joint events such as our crawfish event that we have every April, concert in the country that we have in October. And we were looking for one that we could have fun with.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And so something that we could support, but also go out, get our employees and their families together. It's not real often that you have the opportunity to get the employee and their family, their spouse, their children in one place, all at a common cause and all having fun. And we found all of that in Boots for Troops. And so for that reason, we love it. By the way, serving those that are serving us through our military that are deployed, by the way, is never a bad investment. We absolutely love that cause. And the way that Boots for Troops does it in a very personal and customized fashion, every care package that they send to a deployed service member is customized based on that service member's likes and wants and needs. And I think that's really special.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you for speaking a little bit about Boots for Troops. I think we can all attest, everyone who works at Moffitt, everyone loves the organization. Most of our trucks are wrapped in American flags. We support our troops, we support our veterans, and so I think it's a great organization to back. Now, can you speak a little bit about Texas EquiSearch and how we built that relationship and why Moffitt chose to support their organization?
Sure. So Roy Moffitt and Tim Miller, the founder of Texas EquiSearch, have had a friendship for probably decades.
And he's come on the show before.
Yes.
And so we got to speak a little bit about him and our relationship. But
yes, and through really Roy's relationship with Tim, we learned a few years ago of struggles that his organization was having, not only around funding, but they also needed help and resources that coincidentally were some that we had available. For example, when they go out on searches, and by the way, for people that aren't familiar with Texas EquiSearch, I would highly encourage them to learn more about the organization. They do some of the most incredible work for people in the most difficult situations. Imagine having a missing family member and being at wit's end with law enforcement or the limited other channels. When Tim's organization comes in and takes over, it can be it can have a real impact. But nevertheless, the kind of help they often need, obviously they need fuel. In some cases they're operating equipment that might be ATVs, it might be earth-moving equipment.
Okay.
But they also need things like command center, generators, ATVs. We possess all of those in our business, and in many cases they sit around for months of the year when we're not in hurricane season or we're not out working some type of natural disaster. Why not make those available to someone who can, put them to work for a good cause? And so it just seemed like a natural fit, and I couldn't be more proud of the work Texas EquiSearch does and our ability to help them further that work.
Yes, absolutely. Well, what a noble thing that you've decided to do as well with both organizations. Shout out to Texas EquiSearch. They actually came out with a Netflix documentary not too long ago this year, so you could watch it on Netflix. It's called The Texas Killing Fields. And Mr. Tim Miller is wearing our logo, one of our Moffitt Services shirts, so we love that, and we love Tim, and we love Texas EquiSearch and Boots for Troops. So thank you for speaking a little bit about the background of how our relationship first started.
Sure.
To end off, I want to ask if there's any updates that you want to share, specifically with our relationship with ExxonMobil and selling mobile diesel efficient fuel, or just in general, any company updates or exciting news.
Sure. No, I would love to do that. So let's start with ExxonMobil. So in the Houston market, as many know, we are a branded reseller. We sell mobile diesel efficient, which is, in my opinion, the most technologically advanced fuel available. Most people might say, well, what does that mean to me? And I'd say that's one of the things that we're working on today, is really helping our customers better understand the importance of the technology behind mobile diesel efficient. So today's engines are, run on much tighter specifications. The fuel systems are much more complex, which means, buildup and other contaminants in the fuel system have a much more dramatic effect. So in many cases, customers may be suffering with things that a fuel solution can help solve and not even know that. For example, if the diesel particulate system is constantly going down, or their DPF system, they may not realize that may be fuel related, or it could be related to the improper handling of diesel exhaust fluid, which has fairly stringent handling and shelf life requirements. And so, we're working hard to be a better partner to our customers by really learning more about that, carrying that message out to customers, and that's exciting for us. We really think there's a lot of opportunity to help reduce the operating cost or improve the operating results for many of our heavy equipment operators, fleet operators, and customers like that. Excuse me. The second thing I would say is around our data initiative. I touched on that earlier.
Yes.
But I just want to come back to that. It's another one where it's not that a lot of customers are asking for this, but we think it's really valuable, and they may not even think to ask. So we're really trying to be on the forefront of making sure that we're providing prompt, detailed, and accurate delivery information to our customers at whatever level of granularity they need it. Let me give you an example. Let's just say a job site that has 10 pieces of equipment on it. For many of our customers, they're perfectly happy with coming out, filling that equipment, but others may want to know how much fuel is being consumed by each of those 10 pieces of equipment. 3 might be assigned to one subset of that job, and the other 7 to a different subset. And so we are creating or have created systems to help us provide that information in various formats to customers so that they can track that however and apply that however they would like, and making that data available more quickly by using cloud technology to retrieve that information from our fleet real time, as opposed to the old paper-laden process, which our industry has, been accustomed to for decades. So
yeah, definitely.
those are just 2. There are many others, but those are 2 that are kind of at the forefront. They're both occupying a fair amount of my time and energy, and they're initiatives that we're excited about.
Yes, and we're one of 18, right, as a branded reseller of mobile diesel efficient fuel.
We are. We're one of 18 commercial distributors of that product in the entire country, and we're proud of that.
Yes, yes. Well, that's awesome, Carl. Thank you so much for your time today. We covered some really interesting information about a little bit of background on yourself and what you did when you were in high school to starting Moffitt with the 2 other owners in 2014. We learned about your challenges and how you've overcome those, and some new advances in technology, and how we're a branded reseller with mobile diesel efficient fuel, and even a little bit about our philanthropies. So thank you so much for going into details about all of those things. And I'm really excited that you got to come on the air and spend a little time with us today. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, and there will be plenty more to talk about in the future whenever you're ready.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Fuel Disclosure, a Moffitt Services podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a moment from Moffitt. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level with a team that delivers industry-leading service and no downtime, visit us at moffittservices.com.